we all had them, and I love that there's so much emphasis on them this year. With the recent success of the film, If, we're going back to talking about our imaginary friends with the new Netflix animated film, The Imaginary. Let's jump into the review of that right now. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the channel today for another review. And today we're going to be reviewing the new film, The Imaginary, which is coming to theaters June 28th and then streaming to Netflix July 5th. Now, that alone should tell you that they feel very confident with this one, and they should, because it's good. Oh, it's good. And like, don't get me wrong, Netflix has truly been stepping up their animation department, and with that, they've been coming out guns a-blazing with project after project, just continue to getting better and better, and also just showing you that Netflix is the place for animation. And The Imaginary, which again is tapping into us and going back into our childhood, where we all had these imaginary friends, and If just did that live action wise. But this, again, is just another display of a feel-good film for us to reconnect with our childhood and just tell a really beautiful story backed by some amazing animation here. So there's so much I need to cover here. First thing, this is brought to you by Studio Ponoc, and then the renowned animator Yoshiyuki Momose, who did Spirited Away, which I was like, yeah, Spirited Away, amazing. I had to look it up. Spirited Away released back in 2001. And I tell you what's significant about that is that that's so long ago, and that film was so good that it felt like it came out just a couple of years ago. I'm telling you, with that alone, tells you that The Imaginary clearly is going to be one for the book. It's going to be one that we look back 20 years later and say, wow, that was great. And I'm going to just suggest right now, while I did get to see this at the comfort of my own home, I got to see this in theater. You need to go see this in theaters, because it's mesmerizing just how beautiful the animation is in it. And then when you look at the cast, because you got to talk about the cast here, the cast is revolving around a couple of different characters. Rudger, who's the imaginary friend to young girl Amanda. So Rudger is played by Louie Rudge-Buchanan. Seems like this is like a perfect casting for him here because, you know, with his name and whatnot. Amanda, played by Evie, Kiszel. And Amanda is the young girl who's living with her mother of the second floor of their family bookshop. Again, her imaginary friend is Rudger, so only she can see him. And the mother, you know, the mother's kind of accepting of it, but she has her questions. And then the mother, they did not come up short with casting here. Lizzie, the mother, is voiced by Hayley Atwell. Oh yeah, Captain Carter herself there. So that's really, really, really fascinating. She does a great job. I you know, obviously she's voiced Captain Carter in If and What If. But you know, to kind of see her in this role, I mean, she's great. She's great. So far, everybody's name is great. Just to be very clear. First of all, I'm not familiar with Louie, but Louie as Rudger is completely great. And this Rudger, Rudger, not Roger, and I say that because that becomes an element in the film. And then Emily, a character who comes in pretty later on in the film, but by all means adds so much. It's a character that I have questions about. I don't know if I'm even going to talk about it in this review, but like, Emily might be the MVP of this film, voiced by Sky Katz. And there, Mr. Bunting, the villain, Jeremy Swift, does a good job in giving you this creepy character that you've seen this type of character in so many different stylings of anime. So, you know, there is really a very familiar component to this character, I would say. And, you know, it's a mysterious man who follows Rudger. And again, Rudger is an imaginary friend that only Amanda can see. So how is Mr. Bunting following him? So, you know, we'll add that. And there's so many other folks involved with this. Jane Singer, LeVar Burton, Kyle Penn. This goes on and on. There's just a really, really, really stacked cast for this animated film. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit about Rudger here. All right, let's talk about the plot and all. So Rudger is a boy that no one could see except Amanda, and they're sharing this thrilling make-believe adventures, which is so cool because Amanda's going through some things. You know, she's sort of grieving the absence of her father, and Rudger's kind of there to kind of make life to help her take that step forward in life. And so like when they're having their adventures and whatever the adventure may be, and obviously it's an imaginary adventure, which we've done that as kids, the animation brings that to life. And oh man, is it amazing. Like that's got to be my favorite part of the film. I would love to see shorts of this film where we just kept seeing more and more and more adventures without the overall story of this film. I would love to see them just continue to have like 15 to 10 minute shorts of just them going on these small adventures because of how amazing the animation is with it. But then with that being said, Rudger, because there happens to be a little incident that lands Amanda in the hospital. So now Rudger is kind of just out on his own, which lands him alone in this town of Imaginaries, where if Imaginaries are forgotten, then essentially they could disappear, and that's their biggest fear. But in this town of Imaginary, this is where they can live, find work, and obviously the threat of Mr. Bunting that's coming from behind him. So this is like a 2 to 3 fold story, because you do have Mr. Bunting after Rudger. You have Rudger also trying to get to Amanda, but you also have Amanda who is just really dealing with obviously needing her imaginary friend, but also still trying to navigate life because of the challenges that that she's dealing with in terms of the absence of her father, and then the mother really trying to accept that she has an imaginary friend in the best way possible, because she's also dealing with this as well too. So like there is a sense of grieving across the board, just being handled in different ways. Now I say this now, like one thing I liked about this film, beyond just the animation and the voice acting, is just how stimulating the film is, because after a while you feel very immersed in the adventures and then everything that's kind of happening, and then your emotions get attached to it. So that's obviously a good sign that the film is telling a good story, is that you feel for Rudger, you feel for Amanda, you feel for the mother, and then you try to understand what Mr. Bunting is up to and what's his whole case, besides him just being a random older creepy guy following an imaginary kid and also haunting Amanda, essentially, but nonetheless, it's a great adventure. Now, one thing I will say about Mr. Bunting is, and this may be a little bit of a spoiler, but it's in the trailer, but Mr. Bunting also has an imaginary friend. And Mr. Bunting's imaginary friend is a little creepy. So if you've seen The Ring, like Samara, or if Sadeko, like that design, I mean, with everything being so bright and with this character being so dark, the contrast works so good. And whenever this imaginary friend is on screen, it almost locks you in, because it's such a contrast and of a drastic difference in terms of how vibrant everything else is. But like, I love the design. I can't even fake. I really, really, really love the design. And Mr. Bunting's motives is all spelled out in terms of his desire for spice and scent, is all I'm going to say about that. Emily, as I said, is such a amazing additive to this story, because when it comes down to the leader of the Town of Imaginaries, it's all Emily. And Emily has such courage and joy and just somebody you kind of want in your corner. And while Rudger is really struggling because the fear of disappearing if the imaginary friend is forgotten, it's something that he's now dealing with his own sense of fear, while he's always been supportive of Amanda. But what happens when he doesn't have his best friend there for him? And that's where Emily steps in for it. So I gotta say, like, I have questions about Emily, because Emily's fate in this story is kind of left up in the air. There may be a definitive answer, but I'm not so sure if I strongly believe that. I feel like there may be potential for more, because I'm lobbying for more in this world. That's what it is here. But nonetheless, I think like there's just really, really, really good moments, and like I love the songs too. I love the music in this, especially the song that's in the credits. The song in the credits is really good, you know? So, like, with that being said, like, the film has a lot of heart. It's filled with such heavy emotions, just creepy at times as well, too. But, like, the film definitely tells a super solid story across the board, and it just only continues to solidify that Netflix is becoming a home for animation and anime and so on. And I think this one is by all means a must watch. You can see it in the theaters, do so. If not, when it comes out on Netflix, you definitely want to make sure that you're there as soon as it drops. And it's good for all ages. It really, really is. And then Yoshiyuki, you know, being the animator behind this, like, how can you not? Spirited Away, if you haven't checked it out, you want to stop there. And then Studio Ponoc, I mean, I think that they have a reputation, especially with folks really comparing them to Studio Ghibli. Like, that's alone should tell you that there's enough, and there's story behind that, which I know I don't want to tap into it too much, but I think like that enough should tell you just how respected the folks behind this film in terms of production and making this work. So listen, The Imaginary, a film. Put it on your list. Go out the way and check it out in theaters June 28th, on Netflix July 5th. I feel like I covered everything. I also feel like I got to talk about this so much more. But for what it's worth, it's just a mesmerizing adventure that really have us, even as adults, really tap back into the nostalgia of our childhood, our imaginary friends, and telling such a good, heartfelt story of just two best friends going on adventures, and with the world becoming so big and so serious around them, they have to really stick back to it just being just them to get through it all. And that's interesting. And yes, it's sort of a threefold story. You know, it's the Amanda Rudger story, it's the Rudger by himself story, and then it's the overalling plot and danger of everything that's kind of happening around them. So I don't know how I didn't mention this, but the third act definitely took everything I said and times it times 10. Everything just gets elevated in that third act in terms of the drama, the animation, the voice acting, like everything really, really, really steps up in the third act. So very happy I got to check this out, and you definitely want to make sure you do so too. But until you do, folks, tell me your excitement, and then once you do, come back and tell me your thoughts about this one. Was I right? Was this the film that you thought it was going to be? Were you excited once you checked it out? Were you happy about it? Do you want to see more from this world? You let me know all of that in the comments below. But until then, stick around for more reviews and content here at Big Old Bell Media very soon.